This week on the OneCast, we're joined by Seth Ellis, National Professional Fishing League Pro. He's going to break down his midseason report and talk about the strides and struggles of getting sponsorships in the industry.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. Huh? It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's going to be a bad day.
I just want to congratulate Trey right off the bat. For the first time ever, he did a one-take introduction. Everybody out there, if you're listening, give him a little round of applause.
I did not expect that.
Oh, man. You know what? Well, I'm a few cold beverages in, so I feel like I play pool better when I drink cold beverages and I talk better. So thank you, Pete.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Proud of you.
Yeah. So, well, if you're listening or watching, we got Ben in the house right here, as always, and he's wearing a OneCast fishing shirt. So if you're in the market for some snagless jigs, weedless net heads, soft plastics, apparel, all that good stuff, head on over to OneCastFishing.com. Use the code TheOneCast. You're going to save 10% at checkout. And while you're online, Pete, what do they need to do?
You need to head over to CarolinaWatersNC.com. That's CarolinaWatersNC.com. Use the code TheOneCast, all one word, at checkout. Get your UPF gear, your gloves, your hats, your buffs, whatever it is you need to keep you protected out there on the water, or get you some shirts just to be comfortable around the house or out on the town or whatever it is. They got the new kids wear out, so they've got some children's sizes available now. You can get them ready for school if they're not back yet. That's CarolinaWatersNC.com, code TheOneCast. And then from there, click on the link in our bio that says Hobie Eyewear. That'll take you to Hobie Eyewear's website, HobieEyewear.com. If you use our link, you'll save 15%? 15%. Yeah, 15% off your order. I don't know. There's too many percentages. You'll save some money off of your order. Get you some of those floating frames. Yeah, the economy sucks. So take advantage of any savings you can get right now. Head over there. Grab you some sunglasses, the floating frames, Sight Masters for low light. Highly recommend you grab a pair of those. They just released some new ones at iCast, so they're available now on the website. So make sure you head over there and check them out. And that's it for right now. We will have a few more, one for sure, and then I think a few more folks that are coming on to help sponsor the show, help us keep doing what we're doing. So looking forward to bringing you those here in about a month, give or take. So one of them will be on to kind of make the announcement.
Yeah,
so that'll be fun.
Actually, I got that confirmation, so we'll record the week before we launch that. So
it's a pretty cool partnership opportunity.
It is.
And those folks hit you up while you were at iCast, right?
They hit me up before iCast, about a couple weeks before, and then actually I think a little longer than that. And I was able to meet a couple of the guys down there and talk to them, and had a good conversation for probably about 3 hours down there, sitting there in iCast just talking. So I know that, but it is a pretty cool. We're happy to be working with these guys. So, and it should help everyone catch more fish.
That's right.
We're going to talk about how hard those partnerships are to come by, not just as an angler, but as a podcast, media in the industry, whatever it is. None of this stuff is free that we do. Hosting podcast sites and getting gear made and stickers and the equipment and all of that. There's a cost to that, and none of us are independently wealthy. So, pulling those sponsor dollars, there's a limited pie with all the podcasts out there. So we're super thankful for those that have taken a chance with us early on as we get rolling. We're going to be at 2 years before we know it.
I know.
It's pretty wild.
It's coming up 24 months, man. And we already got several guests that are repeat offenders. And we're very happy to have Seth here joining us today. Seth, how are you?
I'm wonderful, guys. How are you guys?
Not too bad, man.
Good.
So, Seth Ellis, you came in after the very first NPFL event that you fished, which was Logan Martin. You had I'm going to say top 15. You had an 11th place finish or something like that?
Yeah, 11th at that.
11th?
Yep.
So you cashed a little bit of change there, right? But we wanted to bring you back in the show, and I know it's a little over an hour drive here in the Raleigh area. We appreciate you coming down here. And for those listening or watching, Hurricane Debbie, or tropical storm, hopefully she turns into that, is going to hit us tonight. So, we want everyone to be safe. We appreciate you driving down here during this inclement weather, which is not very bad right now. So.
No, and I appreciate you getting me out here today and not tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because I think we're supposed to get between tomorrow and Friday, 9 inches of rain.
So I will imagine Friday, Saturday will be a lot of places you won't be able to get to.
Yeah.
100%.
Especially the further south you go.
You want to come back tomorrow?
Not particularly.
You're not going to put your boat in Jordan this weekend. I can promise you that. Those
You may
ramps
not
are
put your
going to
boat
be
in quite a
closed.
few places.
You might be
Balls
able to
will
put your boat in your
probably be
backyard.
Might.
Yeah,
I live on a hill, so no.
He's
yeah. But you got a cool little pond, like
I
matted
do.
out with duckweed. So
I do.
So you can go down there and throw a little frog around or flip one of those Nighthawks or something like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, you came in here, you had a really great first event, and let everyone know how your mid-season, or this is a mid-season update. So let everyone know how your season's going so far. And I guess it's considered your quote unquote rookie year on the NPFL, but you've been fishing for a really, really, really long time. So
yeah, I mean, but this is a whole nother level, man. You know, these guys are good and it's a lot of money and there's a lot riding on it. You know, sometimes when you fish a local derby, it doesn't matter if you're fishing a local derby with 10,000 or 1,000. It, you know, the intensity sometimes is not always at this level, right? Every time you put the boat at this level, you better be putting everything you got into it or they're going to kick your teeth in. But so far, you know, this year's been okay. You know, I will tell you, I'm not fishing up to my potential. But a lot of that's, you know, second guessing myself only because there's a lot of play in these events, right? These are multi-day events. You know, it's not an easy thing to go in and say, okay, I'm just going to do this and this is how this is going to go, like you would in the one-day tournament, right? You have so many variables: wind, water levels, current, boat pressure, blast off times. There's a lot of things that have changed this year for me that I haven't been accustomed to. So I will be 100% and tell you that I have not fished up to my potential. But yes, I did. I finished first at Logan Martin, which was a great event for me. I learned a lot, but at the same time, I was able to fish to my strengths, and I was okay with that. The second event at Hartwell, that was on me. I committed a boo-boo the first day. I went to that event with an open mind. I told my wife I was cautiously optimistic about that event because I have history there, but that's the type of place that at that time of the year could really set up to my strengths or really be away from my strengths. I went down there and I tried to look at everything, the herring spawn, offshore fish, and I was fortunate enough to find enough fish for 2 days to sight fish with. I found them on the second day of practice, and they were nice ones, like 3 to 5 pounders. I'm not saying I could have won, but I would have done well if they would have stayed. Third day of practice, I went and ran some more brush because I was like, well, man, if these fish do leave, I have a backup plan. I found a little bit, but not a lot. We have the off day in the NPFL, which I really like, but that day I didn't like it because I didn't have a chance to go back and check those fish, right? The first morning, I knew it was like a 40-minute run. It was all the way down by the dam where I found these fish. I had some just stuff close that I could go to and try to catch a limit. I pulled up on the first place and I had 8 pounds and 4 casts. I'm like, all right. I fish around some other stuff, check it, don't get a bite. So like 11:30, I make that run. I get down to my first little cut. I run through it, nothing. I go to my second cut, nothing. I go to my third cut, nothing. I'm like, all right, this is only like a portion of what I had down there, because it wasn't like you would pull into these places and they were all over the bed. You'd pull in, there was like 3.
I'm trying to remember, because you went down there right after, you went down there pre-practice, I think, right after we had our episode last, because there was also that tournament on Falls or something that you couldn't make.
Correct.
That was May, right?
Yep.
That was
It
May,
was in May. It was May. And down, you know, this far south, it can be iffy, right? The sight bite can go within just a matter of days because of the heat, pressure, yada, yada, a lot of things. So anyways, I get through like the third of my stuff. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to run these next 4 pockets and I'm going to catch what I need to catch and get back north. Well, I run those 4 and they were gone. So I'm like, man, I got to go check these fish. Well, before I know it, it's 2:25 and I got a 45-minute ride back. And I'm like, this ain't good. I hit some places on the way back. I never capitalized, and I put myself in a huge hole after day 1. I had 8 pounds. So knowing that, the second day, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to run this stuff I had brush-wise, some fish that I thought I could catch schooling, and just try to just make up half the distance to catch, to cut a check. The second day comes around, I pull up on first place, dude. I catch 10 pounds in 10 minutes. I'm like, all right, we're going to do this, no worries. I go the whole day and don't land another keeper bite. So, was
that a herring spawn first thing in the morning?
There was, but man, it was so sporadic. Like you could find them on one point one day and they might be 4 miles away.
So it's not like they were doing it all over the lake.
Not at all. They had already, it was past that point. There was a little bit of a true shad spawn way up the Tougaloo River. But it was like a 50-minute drive. Well, by the time you launched, the sun was way up. A lot of those fish were disappeared by then.
Yeah.
So the second day, that's what I had. And I mean, I'm sitting in mid 60s. And I'm like, man, if I can go out and catch 13 pounds, I'll cash a check. I'll just get myself back into where I need to be, especially for the points, man. I started off so strong. I was in 11th. I'm like, I just don't want to fall too far. Third day is the same deal. I ran my brush stuff, and it's like every time I got a bite, I couldn't either land it or they just would never connect.
Yeah.
And I ended that event in mid 60s, 68, 67. So I was like, all right, I'm okay. I fell a little bit in the points. I think I fell right at like 30th place. I'm like, I'll get them back at Pickwick. Well, no offense to the NPFL, they've given me this opportunity, but when they change those launch times.
Well, let's get into that here in just a second.
Sure,
let's talk about Hartwell for a moment. Let's talk about the condition that the fish were in Hartwell. And I think that's something that not a lot of people knew about. The fish, from my understanding, were really unhealthy looking, to the point where even when you hooked them in the mouth, they could get off easily because they were having like very easy times ripping the lips and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about the condition of the fish? And is that something you calculated during your practice?
So yeah, we can definitely talk about that. The spots is what I saw the problem with. When I caught a good largemouth, it was healthy. It was green.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have a problem, but we all know that Hartwell is mainly a spotted bass fishery now, at least from May on, right? And maybe earlier in the year, it's more largemouth, but yeah, the spots, I can't answer that question because I don't know what was wrong with them. Yeah. There was a lot of speculation that they might have a virus, or, some of the markings were from people that were improperly trying to fish some of these fish that were really deep. But some of the things was like, you'd catch a 10-inch spotted bass just on a drop shot, right? And they'd have this mark on them. Well, how many people are fizzing a 10-inch spotted bass? Not many.
What was the mark like?
It looked like a quarter.
It almost looked like a lamprey was stuck to
correct. It was the size of a quarter, but the scales were gone. It was just like white meat and reddish. But it didn't look like an open wound, like it was nasty. It was weird looking. But a lot of the fish, that the spots at least that I caught and a lot of other guys caught, had that same marking.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't have any fish die, fortunately for me, but other guys, they were sticking the call tags in them, and they said an hour later those fish were dead.
Yeah.
So I just don't know. There was so much speculation, but nothing ever came out. And I haven't heard anything about it since then. And it could just be a lot of those fish were stressed from the spawn, and they were just getting a lot of pressure. I know there was a giant high school tournament a couple of weeks before that, like 400 boats.
Yes.
When you stick that many boats on that place, and Guntersville's a prime example. It went through it several years ago. When you just have major tournament after major tournament after major tournament after major tournament amongst the local pressure, and those fish are constantly getting stuck, it will have an effect. Good, bad, or indifferent, it's going to have. Through that a few years ago.
And Hartwell has been hit a lot the last 3 years?
Yeah.
Because
Classic,
2
high school national championships, college national championship, plus not to mention BPT events, elite events, and NPFL events.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if that's the case or not, but a lot of guys were saying that might be the case. So yeah, they were just, man, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't catch enough big spots to see any difference, but I know some of the guys that caught big spots, they were fine.
Really?
It would seem to be those small to just keeper size fish that had a problem.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Like if you caught a 4-pound spot, which some of those guys did, they were beautiful. Just thick, big bellied spotted bass with not a mark on them.
Yeah.
But those smaller fish just seem to be ones having a problem.
I think it's important to bring that up just because we see how impactful anglers can be to the biologists, how much feedback that they really rely on from anglers. And, we saw that with this show and talking to our biologists here about the slot getting removed in Harris, about the health of the fisheries, the aquatic vegetation, all that stuff. And so you guys noticed, and you're not the only NPFL angler I heard it from, or we heard it from, the fish just seem to be really, really unhealthy. What it's attributed to, we have no idea. I think it's important if any biologist is listening to this and out of South Carolina, you might want to take a peek at your small spotted bass population, right? Because it seemed like a lamprey, which is not happening. But we saw that a lot in the north, right? Like on the Great Lakes region, like lampreys latch onto like salmon and bass and stuff like that. So just a really weird thing. But yeah, so Hartwell went down, not the way you wanted it to go down.
No.
Now, go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I would still say like finishing. I forget how many anglers were at that have been 120 some.
Yeah, well,
so almost top half.
Yeah, I mean, I was 50%, but you know, I mean, like anybody else, you always want to do better.
Oh yeah,
than that. And realistically, I should have done better than that, and I didn't. It was a lot of it was decision making. A couple of just things just didn't go my way. But that's just the way the sport of bass fishing goes, right? I mean, even the best don't always catch them. So yeah, I just didn't work out in my favor. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to lick my wounds, go back to the house, and look forward to getting to Pickwick. And I was actually looking forward to Pickwick.
Yeah.
And then I got that dreaded email. Guys, we're going to launch 10:30. And I'm like, God. Because I know on the TVA, a lot of times in the summertime, you can go shallow for the first few hours and catch a decent bag. Now, you might not catch another fish shallow the rest of the day, but you can usually at the daylight to 9 or 10 o'clock, sometimes earlier, depending on the weather, but you can catch 15, 16 pounds, right? And do well. And that's what I had. My entire plan was going in. We got the emails and I didn't even fool with it. I mean, I did one day. I said, you know what, I'm going to try. Cause I still got up and practice. Like that was the thing. Some guys didn't get out there until 10:30 and they'd practice till almost 9 o'clock at night. I said, no, I'm going to put my time in because now I can't fish shallow. Then I need to figure out something else.
Yeah.
So I would go out there. One day I got out there at like daylight and I fished for 3 hours and I did well. And it's useless.
Yeah.
So from there on out, man, I did what a lot of guys did. I idled, looked for brush, looked for schools. And the crazy thing about it is those fish were not set up the way I guess a normal TVA Pickwick sets up. And what I mean by that is there wasn't massive schools everywhere. They were, but they were able to, for whatever reason, and some other guys better with their electronics may be able to describe this, but they could almost camouflage themselves from down scan. You could see them on side scan, but you'd roll over them and they disappear, right? So, and a lot of guys talked about that, especially the guys that I room with. Like, man, I rolled over these places and never saw them. I'd turn around and with active target, they'd be there.
Well, who were we? I think we were talking to somebody on the show here. But if not, then I was talking to somebody, and I don't remember who it was. I don't remember if it was Pickwick or Gunnersville. And this is not very long ago, but they're like, because they had an event out there, and all those summer schools that there used to be, they're all like 5 and 6 fish schools, and you kind of like Jordan instead of.
I was going to say, turn right into Jordan Lake, dude.
No, I mean, the guys that were at the top, like Walters and I can't remember the boy's name, Isaac Peavy House, like they had found some legitimate schools. And I've talked to some other guys out there that, man, I found some that had like 10 fish in them or whatever. But as far as the giant 100 fish TVA schools, they were gone, right? Yeah. And I don't know if that's because of pressure or they just don't get like that anymore. So I idled for 2 days solid. And then the last day, because I didn't find anything but a handful of brush piles, I said, I'm just going to go fishing. I found one place on the south end of the Natchez Trace Bridge that was just
what was that bird's name?
The Natchez Trace.
Oh.
Natchez Trace.
I just want to make sure you can say
Natchez Trace.
I've never heard of it.
Yep. On the south end, there was just a high spot next to the river channel that had some grass on it, and it was a hard spot, probably the size of, maybe 6 or 8 parking spots. And by sheer chance, I slung a Carolina rig up there because I couldn't get bit on anything else.
Oh, you drugged?
Dude, the old 2-splash rig. Old 2-splash rig, right? And I catch a 3-pounder. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to leave it. That was the last day of practice. And mind you, my roommates are smoking them.
Well, who's your roommates again?
My roommates are Cole Harris, Josh Hooks, and Zach Burge.
Oh.
Burge, I know in practice.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, he's probably not going to care, but he went like 18, 22, 19. He had a 5-pound smallmouth in practice, like absolutely working them. Hooks caught some good ones. The first day, Cole had 22, and he had a 7 and a 6 on back-to-back casts of practice. Like, I can't find these things.
Yeah.
So the first day of the tournament, we launch out. I think I got to be in it 6 something. So I spend a good portion of my day, and I'm talking from like 11 o'clock to 4:45 just running brush piles, high spots, just fishing. And I look at my watch and it's like 4:52. I'm like, I gotta catch one. This is not good. Like, this could really derail me. So I'm like, I'll just go down. And the thing about Pickwick that was so surprising is that place is big. Like, it takes a while to get to places. So I make this run. It's 35, 40 minutes down there. I set up on this place, dude, and it's like for 20 minutes I catch them. And I had 15, whatever it was the first day. Like, all right, I might have something here. I leave a little bit early to account for boat traffic because there's barges on the TVA, so you got different things. And that place got rough too. I stopped on one place that I had found in practice that I had like 4 fish on it. I drop the trolling motor. I see 25. I make one cast with the Carolina rig and catch a 2-pounder. It doesn't help, but I'm like, all right, I got some more fish. Roll on. First day I weigh in, whatever it was, 15, and I'm in the mid 30s, and I'm happy with it. Yeah. Like, after practice, dude, I was so pumped. Because
you're in paycheck range right there.
Well, I'm in paycheck range, but man, like, just in general, when you start off in a position that allows you a little bit of leniency, making a good start, you don't have to fight from the bottom of the barrel, man. It doesn't make the coming days harder for yourself.
Not only that, your practice was terrible.
That's what I'm saying.
You had terrible 6 hours on the water until you found something.
Yeah, I found
blasted off at 10:30.
Yeah. Well, I mean, by the time I got out there, it was 11 something, but you're right. Yeah. So the second day I run straight to that place. I'm like, I'm all I got. I got to go. I roll up down there, dude, and I catch 2 real quick. And then I think I go 30 minutes. I don't get a bite, and I catch a couple more. And then time has progressed. So that maybe it's 2:30, and all of a sudden it's just like they bite, and it's cast after cast for 15 or 20 minutes, 20-minute lull. Cast after cast, 50 20 minutes. And I think that day I lost 2 fish that would have helped. I lost what looked to be a 4-pounder. Obviously, I couldn't weigh it that way out there. And another one that was a solid 3-pounder. I ended up weighing 16 something, and I jumped up actually.
All on the ball and chain.
Yeah, all on a 2-splash. I couldn't get them to eat anything else. I'm talking a shaky head, Nico rig, drop shot, football jig, crankbait, you name it.
It's like my nightmare.
Yeah, dude, it's awful. It was the same cast. It was a one cast.
The only thing worse would be if they only bit a net rig.
I mean, I would have been kind with that. I mean, it was crazy.
You made me think. So you had to run all the way down in the south. That's that spot in the south end, right? You're talking about.
Yep.
How's the water flow? Is it coming from the north or coming from the south?
So that place runs from south to north, I believe, the way the current runs, if I'm not mistaken, because Florence, Alabama is south of Counce, Tennessee. At least in my geography class, it was.
Yeah.
So the current comes from Florence and it flows through Counce.
You have an Ohio education.
I know. I'm not. I mean,
it's fine. I'm right behind you in Michigan.
But yeah. So, and here's the thing: like everybody's like, "Oh, the TVA is going to run current. The TVA is going to run current." They didn't run squat current.
And that was the whole reason. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. And look, I'm not in that position to make that decision, right? They did what's best for the league, and I'm fine with that, right? Yeah. I have to be an adaptive angler and say, okay, I have to figure out a way to catch them. That's my job. All right. So I was never ever upset with Brad. It just kind of pigeonholed me into not fishing my strengths, right? But anyways, yeah. So I go the second day and I get down and I have that good weight, and I'm like, the third day comes around and the entire house caught them, right? So Zach had 22, Josh had 19, Cole had 19, I had almost 17. So we're all trending upward.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they're like, what do you think? I'm like, I got one place. Every single thing off of one place, and I'm going to burn it down. That's all I got. I go down there, and I'm not there 10 minutes on the final day. And I had a late check-in the final day. I catch a 3.5. I'm like, we're good. I go 20 minutes, I catch another one, keeper, just a 2-pounder. And then I go 4 hours, boys, without a bite.
That's on your hard spot.
Yep.
Your hard high spot.
I didn't leave it. I changed angles on it. And then finally I catch like 3 real quick, but they're non-keepers. And I thought, all right. And by this time it's 4:30-ish. I'm like, okay, I'm okay, man. The first day I didn't catch them until after 5 o'clock anyways. I caught them all day yesterday, but it's because I sat here. So we'll be good. I kind of moved maybe 50 yards up it and just hit it from a different angle. And I catch a 3-pound smallmouth. I'm like, all right. This time it's 5:30. I still have well over almost 2 hours before check-in.
You got 3 in the box.
I got 3 in the box for roughly 7.5, 8 pounds. And I knew if I had 14 pounds, I'd finish in the top 30, cash a check. I'd regain some points back and be good heading into Saginaw. And then I go another hour without a bite. And I'm like, what is going on here? So I look at my watch, and I know I had a 40-minute run back, but I'm like, man, I got 2 places that I can hit on the way back to see if I can get just 2 bites. Because usually that's the thing. The bites were hard to come by, but if you caught one, they were quality fish.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was apparent well through the field. Like they just caught good quality fish. Yeah. So I was like, well, look, there's one brush pile on the front side of this. I pulled around it and I made 1 cast. I was using forward facing sonar. I made 1 cast and I saw this big blob sitting at the top of it. I make 2 cranks, smoked it. Here comes a 3-pound smallmouth straight out like a rocket. Spits my bait. I'm like, that's the worst luck in the world. I'm reeling it back in. I'm watching. I'm like, this thing's awful light. I thought he had broke my bait. No, he broke it in half. He had the hook. I had the other half. I don't want to divulge too much information because this is something that I figured out down there. And if we go back, I want to keep it to myself. But mind you, I was like, you got to be kidding me. And this was a brand new bait straight out of the pack. So this time I'm like, all right, I got to go. I can't stay any longer. We got to roll. So I load up, and the place I stopped on the first day that I'd caught a 2-pounder that there was some fish on, I thought I could go there. I was like, there's some fish there. I hadn't seen anybody on it. It was just a same deal, high spot, main river bar, a little grass around. I get right around the bend because when you come under the Natchez Trace Bridge, you kind of round the bend a little bit, and I could see the spot. Local sitting on it. I'm like, I'm not even going to fight for it because I don't have enough time. So I kept on riding, and I had one more. Hour, they would have bit. They're still there. I mean, there was, I could see them swimming around. And you'd see them. There's bait there, but I guess me just sitting there, the presence of my boat. And I didn't, I mean, that's my own stupidity or ignorance, I guess, because I didn't know.
Inexperience.
Yeah. I mean, because here's the thing. The worst thing that I want to do is leave and another angler pull up on and jack them. Yeah. You know, and that's the way this deal was going because they weren't everywhere. But I was very fortunate. Nobody tried to push in on me. And I'm sure some guys had that problem. But, you know, actually, I want to give a shout out to an angler.
I was just going to ask if you get into that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the second day of the event, I'm fishing this place. Well up from me, 500-600 yards, and kind of fishes his way to me. And I'm thinking, all right, here we go. I'm going to have one of these confrontations. It was Skeeter Crosby. I didn't say anything to him. He didn't say anything to me. We're doing our own thing. And the way I was positioned, my back was to him throwing back up on the place. And he just says, you catching them? I said, man, and I was very cordial. I said, Skeeter, I got 5, I said, I'm happy to have them. We talked for 15, 20 minutes. He's like, yeah, during practice, I'd caught a few fish there. But I stopped here the first day early and couldn't get him to bite. So I didn't check it again. I said, yeah, man, I got a good bag. And about that time I catch a 4-pounder. Skeeter's like, oh, dang, that's a good one. I'm like, yeah, I need this fish. So I get it in. I call a little, and he's like, you did good yesterday, didn't you? I'm like, yeah, man, I had 15. I'm sitting in definitely in top 40. He's like, dude, I'll tell you what, I won't come back. I'm like, dude,
that's awesome.
Skeeter, you do not know how much that means to me because A, I wasn't in contention to win. Skeeter's fighting for a check just like I am. He could have posted up right next to me and didn't. So for him to do that, like hats off, I saw a lot of respect for that guy because he could have said, hey, man, scoot over, I'm coming.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He said, I won't come back. Good luck to you. And that to me, like I will definitely pay it forward to him or anybody else because that's something that is truly lacking today, I think. So for Skeeter to do that, man, hats off to you. I thanked you at the event, but once again, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was totally awesome.
We talked about the second event, which, wasn't ideal for you. And then obviously the third event, you guys are getting ready to roll into Saginaw Bay. And then your last event for the season, or then you have St. John's River.
Yep.
And then you have Lake of the Ozarks, right?
Yep.
You know, we talk a lot on the show about growing the sport, right? Consistently, we see opportunities arising for young anglers to get in the sport, whether or not it's through the invitationals or the tour. It doesn't matter. All the different platforms that are out there. But you talked about people saying, man, like you should be proud. Like you had a really decent finish at Pickwick, but how important, and we're going to get into this, but you're looking forward to cashing checks, if not winning, right?
Absolutely.
And we talk about just because the sport is growing doesn't mean the resources are growing at the same time.
They're shrinking.
Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, they're shrinking.
And I can't empathize because I'm not in that position, and neither of these guys at the table can. But you're in the position as a professional angler to where you have to put yourself out there, and if you're not cashing checks, it can be a problem.
It's a big problem.
It's a big problem.
It's a big problem because so to do this, and some people may say boo-hoo, whatever on you, but to do this, it's very hard to hold down a full-time job, right? Because you're gone at minimum 10 weeks a year. And that's with pre-practice, extra travel days, sponsorship requirements. You're gone 10 weeks a year. Okay. You tell me what job is going to pay me to be gone 10 weeks a year.
Right.
All right. So that doesn't afford me the opportunity to have a regular job. So I have to do what I have to do in order to make ends meet at my house, pay my bills, feed my kids, and then also be able to pay for my expenses out on the road. So coming into this season, I had what job I had. I just said, I'm going to step away. I'm going to kind of get a couple side hustles going so I can at least pay my bills while I'm not fishing. Because, fortunately or unfortunately, the season's only 6 events long. I wish it was longer, to give us more opportunities. But right now, as the league's growing, we're 6 events. So doing that, I have some side hustles, but I rely heavily on a check, as do a lot of guys. Now, maybe not half of them, but let's say out of 120 guys, let's say 40 of them rely on a check. Some of those guys are very fortunate to be independently wealthy. Some of them might have good sponsorship deals where they're getting a salary along with their entry fees paid for. Some guys own big businesses. Some guys have jobs that afford them to get off that kind of time. But not everybody has that opportunity, right?
And we were talking, before the show, out there hanging out, and one of the things we were talking about is how resource intensive this sport competition requires. And I don't think a lot of maybe listeners or viewers out there understand what all it takes. Because I think, as you mentioned, and I'll let you take this, Seth, but everyone understands like there's entry fees and they're expensive entry fees, but that's just a fraction of the cost you incur.
That's probably the cheapest part of the whole thing is the entry fee.
Yeah. I mean, the entry fees, you're right. They're a fraction of the cost, because what most people don't realize is the entry fees, just in general, the sport in itself is expensive, right? And it's gotten that way year after year after year. But when you have $31,000 in entry fees, you can go ahead and say you're going to spend $31,000 in travel, food, expenses on the road. Like, here's a prime example. I had my entry fee for Pickwick, my housing, my food for the week, my fuel, and then on my way home, I get a crack in my windshield. I have to pay for that. Nobody doesn't pay for that,
What happened before you went to Pickwick? What happened with your lower unit?
So I lost a lower unit, in a tournament. I had to pay my deductible.
Sure.
Insurance, I'm very fortunate that the guys at Bass Pro Shops got me turned around, and my insurance company came through, but I had to pay my deductible. And here's the difference is some guys won't make the necessary sacrifices to do certain things, right? Whether that's in the industry, fishing, or in a regular job. I have to give it my 100%. So sometimes I might make decisions that aren't the best, but if it works for me in the long run financially, I have to do that. Yeah. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're horrible financial decisions, but it is what it is. Yeah. So yes, the resources in this business is incredible. some people can say, oh man, you're choosing to do this. You're right. I am. And I will completely accept responsibility. But at the same time, I'm choosing to do this with the understanding that folks are wanting to help me grow their businesses. That's why their names are on my jersey. They're on my boat, whether it be social media posts, whatever they ask me to do, that's a part of the understanding. Well, sometimes that doesn't always end well, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So yes, back to your original question, I do rely heavily on checks. That's not my sole means of income, but in order for me to continue to do this, because as an angler, you can't look at it from, okay, I'm just going to fish this year. You have to look at it from 2 years down the road, right? So if I don't have a title sponsor next year, what am I going to do?
Right.
Am I fortunate enough to do well this year to pay for next year? But that defeats the purpose. No offense, boys, but I'm not going to make 50,000 to spend 50,000.
Right.
That's not why you get in this.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody will tell you that. So if I don't find a title sponsor for next year, I don't go back. And I'm okay with saying that, right? That's not like this is the dream to kill all dreams type of situation. I'm just very realistic. I have 5 mouths to feed. I have a wife that relies on me. I have a house to pay for. I have a truck to pay for. I have a boat to pay for.
Yeah.
Along with all the other expenses that everybody else incurs on their daily life, except for my income is not guaranteed every week like most of y'all's are.
Yep.
And I say that only because it's the truth, right?
Yeah.
I actually met a gentleman at Bass Pro Shops the other day. I was dropping off some props, resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've skinned up 3 props this year. I'm about $3,000 in whole in props. I had to get reworked. I have to pay for that. I don't have anybody paying that bill. I have to pay for that. But I met a gentleman at Bass Pro, and his son, they saw me talking to somebody, and they said, "Excuse me, do you fish?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And they said my name, and I said, "Yes, sir. Nice to meet y'all." And the gentleman looked at his son and said, "This guy fishes for a living. Isn't that the coolest job?" And I took a second, and I kind of bit my tongue, and I said, "It is the coolest job. It's my dream job, but I can tell you it's not for everybody."
Right.
And it's not what it's all made out to be. And I think that's what we as anglers need to do a better job of, especially with the younger kids coming in, that this is not all rainbows, butterflies, and Sundays.
Yeah, we've
Right.
talked about it. Like, everybody thinks it's the camera flashes and walking across the stage and holding fish up, but at the end of the day, it's missing kids' birthdays and potentially births of children and important life events. And I don't want to equate it to the military because there's no sacrifice like that.
Not.
But you're still sacrificing time
Absolutely.
away from your family to try to make a check to feed them, to feed yourself, to keep your addiction, so to
100%.
speak, going.
Yeah.
Because part of this is an addiction, right?
Sure.
You hear it from guys that have long careers in the military. They get addicted to the adrenaline, to the training, to the lifestyle. Firemen, police, everybody, you get addicted to what you're doing, right? For us, fishing is the addiction. For you, you took it one step further and took that risk. But it's something we repeatedly. We keep repeating is it's not just about fishing. You have to look at everything else. And I don't remember who the kid was. I'd call him out right now if I did. But at Raleigh last year, Trey and I were talking to some kids about that were fishing high school. We said, well, "What's your plan after high school?" "Well, I'm going to fish in college." "All right, what's your plan after college?" "The elites." And Trey looked at the kid and said, "Well, what are you going to do to make money?" And the kid's face was basically like dumbfounded at that question because he assumed he was going to fish and make money. There's very few people that are going to fish and make money. You're Kevin Van Dam's. I've always said there's 1% of the 1% that are fishing professionally that are making all of their money.
And those guys are the 1%. It took them a couple, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 years, depending on who it is, until they got to that point, until they proved themselves, on tour.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, there's the one guy that comes to my mind that probably that was the original, other than Kevin Van Dam, right? Like in the last 5 years, that's made majority of his. Now I can't speak for his sponsor portfolio because I have no idea. But if you look at what the guy's made in the last 5 years, it's $750,000 on tournament winnings alone, and that's Patrick Walters.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I don't know what Jacob Wheeler's resume is and some of those other like huge names in the sport, but those, like you said, they're the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. The rest of us are fighting, scrapping, tooth and nail, leveraging, doing whatever we can to get to the next event, because you don't know when it's your time.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. But we're all competitors, and we all feel like we can be at that level at some point in time. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be out here.
That's right.
If I didn't think I could be at Patrick Walters' level, I wouldn't pay my money.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because if you don't think you don't belong out here.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's an important message for everybody listening and watching. Like, you know, when you see the photos on Instagram, the reels on Facebook, whatever the case may be, you're seeing the good part.
That's the 1%.
That's the 1%, right? You're seeing that, and that is inspiring, and that gives you hope and all this stuff. And we're not here to crush your dreams. We're here to be realistic and manage expectations. Did we finish each other's?
I was just going to say expectation management.
Are you guys
But
best friends now?
yeah, can we do karate in the garage?
Absolutely.
Yes. But at the end of the day, like, people need to hear the reality of the sport. Listen, I'm about to be 40 years old.
Yeah.
Do you think for 1 minute I wouldn't love to give it a good old college try and compete with the best of the best?
Come on,
right?
Samesies.
Yeah, come on with it, right? It's exactly what you said. Come on, and that's the invitation.
I'll be there. Just find me 120 grand in somebody else's pocket.
That's the invitation from the BASS Opens and the Toyota Series and all the other leagues that are out there. But at the end of the day, somebody's got to foot that bill.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And so what with arms are open and they're welcoming you, they're also saying, I also need that down payment.
That's right.
I need that money.
All we did was fish a local division of the Fishers of Men, and we cashed a check. I'm not bragging, but I am a little bit. His own tail. We cashed a check in every event, and we're still well into the red on expenses between boat, insurance, licenses, tackle, stuff that breaks because it constantly breaks.
Yes,
it does.
We made negative dollars, and we have to pay taxes on the money we did make.
Yeah. Yep.
If you can't figure out a way to write it off.
That's right.
Right. So
this is going a little bit. Before we go too far, I want to say, parents, dads, moms that are out there like supporting you need to set those expectations with your kids right now. We got to stop you can do whatever you want to do and be successful thing, because this is an industry that is very different.
Very, very
different. You can't throw money and expect success.
I take a little, not issue with that. You can have the dreams, do whatever you want. You just have to have sober expectations.
Oh, that's a good one.
And so, like, if you want to do it, you have to grind. It's like
sober expectations.
Yeah.
I think part of the problem we talked about today, you were talking about the way the world is today. Like, I think parents do a poor job of setting those expectations realistically for their kids.
Yeah.
You want to know why? And this is my opinion. Look, I might get just absolutely canceled for this, but most of these kids' parents these days are not their parents, they're their friends. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They want to be the cool mom and dad. I threw my son in a new truck and a new boat and gave him $100 grand and said, go ahead, buddy, do your best. Come back when you're broke and I'll give you some more.
And if you have that opportunity, great.
Yeah.
Good.
Every single one of us would have taken that, right?
For sure.
We've always taken it, and I'm sure whether or not we would do it or not, we'd all love to be in the position to be able to do that for our kids.
To burn that money down.
But I think for the 99% of kids that might listen to this or hear it, or parents of kids that are doing it, you need to set the expectations like Seth is talking about. If you know it's going to cost 30 grand, just in entry fees, you better have another 30 for travel, food, lodging, fuel, everything that you have to do on the road. Something breaks, because not everybody has service trailers that are there to throw free parts at you when your stuff breaks down, and then you're talking about licenses in every state. The list goes on and on. Tackle, line, rods, reels. It's unbelievable. Like my mind, I'm thinking about everything that we spend money on, and I'm just going. Yeah. And it's like Rain Man.
You spend all that, and that doesn't even cover your normal bills.
Yeah, that's right.
And my fuel bill this year, I can promise you, will be more than most people pay in a year just on 6 events for practice, travel, and to and from.
Yep. I mean, look what happened to us last Sunday, right?
Yep.
We'll use this as a little anecdote. Seth and I went out. I decided to be a co-angler because I wanted to see what he was made of. You know what I'm saying? So we went out to fish a one-day derby, and it cost $400+ only for his trolling motor to take a dump, right? And we're not going to name brands because we're not about that. But I will say that trolling motor issue costs well over $400, and we were in a good position to make some.
We got to fish 3 hours.
Right, 3 hours.
Yep.
Those kinds of things happen. That it's not like you get rained out and the game is over and everyone still makes $1 million sitting on the bench. You know what I'm saying? So it is a really important lesson. I don't think it's a topic that's talked about enough, right? The logistics are 90% of what goes in, and that's a total arbitrary percentage, but a significant percent of what goes into even making that dream happen.
100%. And there's some guys that have, and I'm not going to name names, but there are some gentlemen out there now that have YouTube channels that are actually starting to show this. They're starting to show, man, I've gone 3 tournaments without a check and I got $10,000 deposits due.
Yeah.
My truck payments due. My wife doesn't work. My mortgage payments due. That is a very common theme throughout this business.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think this year's alone, 3 guys have gone public, social media, YouTube, whatever, and had to retire early.
Derek Hunnell from the Elites.
Yep. Some other guy, local guy, I think from Virginia, had to quit the invitationals. Like it's this thing will chew you up and spit you out, and you're none the wiser.
Well, if you go back and listen when we had John Cruz on, he knows guys that at the elite level that have filed for bankruptcy, sold everything they owned, and then they're right back chasing it again 2 years later. And they 2-3 times they've completely bankrupted themselves to chase fish around the country. Like unrealistic expectations.
So if you were to rewind, here's a very real question for you. If you were to rewind before you started even dumping your money into the NPFL, which is an awesome league, and we are huge fans of the NPFL. We've been friends with them for a long time. Is there anything that you would have done differently that maybe some of the younger crew that's listening to this, that's thinking even about getting into the position you're in right now, that you would have done differently? I'll put you on the spot.
No, that's a good question.
Or what do you, or to change that a little bit, what do you plan on doing next year that you didn't do this year?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a 2-part question. Here's the first answer. If you are able, you need to reach out to someone who's been in that position before.
Mentor.
That's somebody that's not going, and it's not even a mentor. I mean, a lot of guys will tell you, hey, look, this ain't easy. It's not cheap. Here's 5 things that you need to kind of prepare for type of situation.
Yeah.
Because at this point in time, it's just somebody else giving you what to expect. I mean, it's not like you're giving them the juice fishing hole. You're just kind of saying, hey, man, you're going to join this league. Okay. You need to set this amount of money for this. You need to make sure that you have these kind of parts because it's going to break type of situation. Just kind of find someone that has been there before type of situation.
Yeah.
And I have reached out to several people that had fished professionally at the elite level, on the FLW side, the tour level. And they all said the same thing, man. Like, you know, it's not at that point in time, it's not about how good you are. It's about how mentally strong you are. It's about how many times you can take a butt whooping and keep coming back.
Yeah.
And if you have enough money to sustain, because you're going to go down, you're going to hit a rut. You're going to go in a funk. You're going to hit a slump, whatever you want to call it. Do you have enough money to sustain, to get through? So when you hit that upswing, you're still good to go.
Yeah.
Right. That's where I would tell people, find somebody that can kind of give you that positive, or just the advice in general to say, okay, I don't have that kind of money, maybe next year, or I'm not willing to take that risk. Because you're going to, I mean, that's another thing. Like, I didn't really expect being gone as long as I did, how much it would affect me being away from my kids and my wife. Man, it sucks.
Yeah.
You know, and the funny thing is, you know, I thought I'm good, man. I'm going to get a vacation.
Yeah.
Dude, about the second night you don't hear your daughter or, hey, babe, from your wife, it's real.
Yeah.
And then you got 6 more days. And then when you don't cash a check and you got a 10-hour drive home, that shit sucks.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
It's awful. Right. So that's the first answer. So my second answer, Ben, I'm just doing whatever I can do right now to kind of align things for next season. Right. I'm talking to everybody that I think might be interested. I'm trying to line up stuff, work for myself this winter. I'm trying to reach back out to sponsors to see if there's an interest for next year. If there is an interest, can we up the dollar amount? And I'm just doing my due diligence to make sure that I don't get, when deposits are due in December, I'm not behind the 8 ball. I don't want to be in a situation where I've got 10,000, I can pay my deposits, and all of a sudden 3 months later, the first event rolls around and I haven't got my first deposit from my sponsor. Yeah. I'll make sure my contractual or my contracts are dotted and the ink's dried well beyond, and I've got checks in the bank. So when I leave for that first event, I don't have any stress. Because what people don't realize is, man, yeah, you got your events and you pay your deposits, and then you only have a short amount of time before that next deposit's due. So it's not like I have a job that's going to go ahead and say, man, if my title sponsor backs out or whatever, or I lose some money from here, I can go to work real quick and make $4,200. Or I can't go to my savings account and pull that out and just pay that deposit. Right. It don't work like that. Yeah. At least for me, it doesn't. Maybe some guys it does.
I think for the majority, it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. Right. So you kind of have to, and that's something that I, back to your question, I think I would have done a little bit better job of it. Just clarifying contracts, making sure that what was said and what was promised was delivered type of situation. Sure. Because, man, I asked a lot of people and they were honest. I just can't help you. I can't do it. It's not beneficial for me. My business is local. You're going national. There's not a monetary gain for me other than a tax write-off to give you a certain amount of money. Yeah. And that, I think we talked about it last time, like it kind of pigeonholes you into asking of only a certain few people. Yeah. Sure. Because like you said before, the industry is growing, but the sponsorship pie, whether it's podcast, angling, whatever, is shrinking. Yeah. Because the amount of people in this. Yeah. Right. And the few dollars, or large amount of dollars that are allocated into most of the larger endemic companies within the industry, they're gone. So what's left is scraps, and there's hundreds of anglers fighting over them. Yeah. Right. Well, that's why you see more and more and more guys. And I don't care if it's at the elite level or the BFL level, the NPFL level, the invitational level. So many guys have non-endemics on their boat now. Yeah. Because that's the only way you can do it. Yeah. There's just not enough money to go around. And that's good, bad, or indifferent. I don't know how we can change that. But that's the reality of it right now. So many guys are leveraging high school buddies, college roommates, moms, dads, in-laws, because long gone are the days that you could cold call a business and get anything out of it.
You think social media has a huge impact on that?
For some people, it does. Yeah. I mean, I'm not afraid to say it. My social media is garbage. And it's not because I don't put the time and effort into it, man. I just don't have time. I have 5 children. I'm trying to be a good husband, a good father. I've got elderly parents that are 8 hours away that I try to take care of. I just don't have time. And they say, they'll say, man, it's 5 minutes of your time. You're right. It is 5 minutes of my time, but my brain.
No, it takes time.
Well,
it takes you more than
somebody
that.
will say, man, it's just 5 minutes, like make a post. My brain is so scrambled after a day dealing with a 2-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old, 11-year-old, a 6-month-old, a wife, bills, stress about the next payment due. Like, social media is just not my thing. My wife's great at it and she handles most of my stuff. But my wife is also a mother to 5 children. Yeah. And she has her own little side business. So the time and these guys, and hats off to them, the guys that are able to afford somebody to run their social media and their social media presence is strong enough to garner income from, I'm not upset at. It's just that it's not something that I can do. Sure. Right. But yeah, I think social media has played a direct impact on the amount of sponsorship dollars available for tournament anglers. Yeah. I mean, so many people have said we're a thing of the past now. Yeah. It's YouTube, it's Instagram shorts, it's TikToks. Anglers themselves, as far as tournament anglers, are useless, I think. Let me rephrase that.
Unless they don't have the same value.
Correct. Like for whatever reason, but we're the ones out there competing for, hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're the ones putting our mortgages on the line, and we're the ones that have put so much time, energy, and effort to perfecting our craft. But yet you have some YouTuber that goes out twice a day or 3 times a week and says throw a black trick worm and you'll catch 100 fish and they get millions of views.
Yeah.
Show me the science behind that, bud.
Yeah.
Meet me on my pond, or I'll meet you on your pond, and we'll see how good that is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand it. Like, and I'm not mad at him. Look, you may be better at something than I am. I just don't understand why that part of the industry has been drawn to that side of the marketing.
Yeah.
And I guess people just find that more entertaining, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I mean, coming from, Ben sitting here, he's a business owner, owns OneCast Fishing. Use the code OneCast Fishing, or the OneCast at OneCastFishing.com.
One of the pros sitting right here. So
he's one of your pros. But from a business perspective, how much value do you see out of social media versus putting a face behind the brand that somebody can go talk to and say, I have the experience flipping the Nighthawk. I have the experience jacking 5+ pounders in a tournament. Where, like, how much value do you put on both of them?
So there is a value to both. Now, I come at this as a small lure company trying to grow, trying to scale, right? Have to be very efficient with resources.
Right.
So up until relatively recently, like, all my marketing has been either organic or paid social media, or pay, and a couple print things here and there. And the reason for that is really attribution and the analytics of these companies, whether it's TikTok, YouTube, Meta. You can target people so well, so you have such a return on your ad spend that you can be really efficient with your marketing capital, right?
Yep.
Efficient use of capital to be able to grow. Now, on the flip side of that, right, if you're in the fishing business and you're a fishing company, that there is professional anglers adds a certain gravitas and a certain legitimacy, right, when you have them as part of your company, representing you, producing content for you, all that, because they are competing at the highest level, regardless of which tour they're on, and they're doing it, for a living, ostensibly. And then, right, I mean, they're putting time on the water, right, right. They're always out there, and they're super dialed in, and so it just gives that legitimacy in the industry. And of course, you can help use that content to help promote and turn that around to paid socials and all. But to come back to the discussion here, I think what has happened over the last 10 years is that companies have realized how much more efficient online ad spend is compared to the ad spend of hiring a huge staff of sponsors. And so they've cut down the number of their sponsored anglers.
Yeah.
Just because they want to get a better return on their capital.
Yeah.
All right. So to that, and I look, man, I've been very fortunate to become in business with you and partner with you. And I just want to ask you this question, right? So you say that they can take a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Direct approach with their marketing dollars and make sure they're going to hit the bullseye every time with that type of ad space, right? Well, let me ask you a question. You take a kid like that gets your stuff via YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and goes out and throws a KVD 1.5 and never catches a bass on it. Well, don't you think it's more valuable to take KVD, who designed the 1.5, and puts it in the right place over and over and over again and shows you the value of the bait? Which is more valuable?
Depends on that company's values too.
Well, I get that, but I'm saying the KVD 1.5 wouldn't be big without KVD. Sure. You get me?
Yep.
Right? The jerkbait, the Vision 110 wouldn't be big without Hank Cherry. There's Ike and Ellie wouldn't have made the Ike series of baits from a grapple of the DT. Ike Inks wouldn't have been popular without Ike.
Yeah.
So anglers carry weight. It's just a matter of how much weight they carry and how much those companies or companies in general see their worth.
But to that point, which one of those anglers has done that in the last 10 years?
What do you mean?
What angler in the last 10 years that has come up has blown a product up and got that line? I think the shift is, and here's my perspective on it, YouTube, short form media and all that has become so popular because that's what kids are watching. They're not sitting around waiting for the next tournament to see fishing, right? Like where us, magazines was a huge thing. Print. We were all reading Bassmaster, Outdoor Life, whatever it was. And that's who they talk to as the pros, right? Now that magazine is YouTube or Instagram or Facebook. So I think to Ben's point, there's value in the professional angler, but companies have to also leverage those anglers to get the content and then push it out, supporting their their thing. So it's like it's a two-way street.
And you know, those guys, if we look back like the golden age, the heyday of bass fishing, late 90s to about 2010, and all the money was in the sport, it was a very centralized sport. You had your top guys who did well, they got the big deals, and they were on all the magazines and TV shows that we read, and it was kind of like a cycle, right? And so it just kind of fed in, and there was a lot of guys who fished 1 or 2 years back then and just never did well enough to get kind of picked up for that type of stuff. Well, what's happened really probably since about 2014 is that it's, in a sense, the industry's been democratized, right? And the product pushers, right? If you want to consider like professional anglers, product pushers in a glorified product pusher in a sense, a lot of times, that has been democratized is that anyone can do that now, just by creating content and engagement and creating a following on social media. So that's how the Googans got started, right?
Yeah.
They were nobodies. And then they created one of the biggest businesses and took over the industry.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of guys, and that is because so many people watched them. And I think sometimes, and from my perspective as a business, sometimes I love tournament fishing. I love following it. I love watching it. It's a very small percentage of the sport.
Yeah.
80% of people who fish never turn into a tournament.
Yeah.
And that's
99%.
Yeah, 99%, right? Yeah, 99% probably like 80% or 90%
I think the
of bass
last numbers
fishermen.
when the ASA did it, like on bass fishing, 1% of people that bass fish were tournament fishermen.
Yeah.
Well, I think that goes back to Seth's point about like 99% of what you're seeing on the boats nowadays are non-endemic sponsors, right?
But pros are still, you know, extremely important, especially to the companies that are in the industry, right? For that legitimacy, to have the products being used at the highest level on tour, to have guys going to trade shows, right?
Yes.
Going to the local expos, going to the Bassmaster Classic, right? Maybe one of your pros, right? He's sponsored by a couple of guys, right? And so they rotate through booths and all that. But we've seen it when pro anglers come into the booth. What happens?
Draws.
Draws people in.
That's right.
Which people end up buying things, helps that business out.
Yep.
So like pro sponsors, I mean, pro anglers, it's not like they don't matter at all. Like, I don't think anyone believes
I don't think
that.
anybody's saying they
It's
don't
just-
matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what's happened is the prioritization of the dollars from the sponsor companies
Has been redirected.
has been redirected. And then
we can go in
Yeah.
circles about this for hours, but I think at the end of the
Yeah.
day, what we're all saying is the angler pool has grown.
Yep.
But the pool of who sponsors can send money to has grown too, not just in tournament anglers.
Yeah.
Now you have a huge pool
Yeah.
of influencers,
Mhm.
you know, that we call them today. So now you take the angler pool fighting for sponsor dollars, add into it the influencer pool that's fighting for sponsor dollars. So now you have quadruple the size. If it was just anglers, there'd be way more money to go around.
Sure.
But now you've got to take into account those you know, influencers or whatever you want to call them, social media content creators.
and what makes you think, and this is a rhetorical question, so if the companies are spending so much more on a cheaper way and getting more sales, then why can't they
Pay more.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Right. Seriously.
Ah.
Because
Look, you're preaching to the choir, man.
yeah, I know. But the message, the narrative of the show is the
Here-
hustle.
Here's
Yeah,
why.
Hustle.
Right.
Private equity.
Yeah.
Private equity has come in and bought most of the big companies,
Yeah.
More so, yeah.
and that's what
Yeah.
all they care about is because conglomerates is the bottom line.
And I will say this, and I agree with all you guys. Like, professional anglers are not relevant. They are relevant, right?
Yeah.
There wouldn't be a sport without a human being
Yeah.
wearing that jersey, running that boat, flipping that bait,
And on top of that,
staring at that screen, whatever.
it's
right?
not a sport unless there's guys doing it
That's right.
who are just different.
And I will
Who are, or the Kevin Dan Dams, the Jacob Wheelers, or like, right, the guys who
Right.
are
Seth
doing
Ellis is-
and you know, and this
exactly.
and this is just my,
takes all of them, right?
I mean,
Right.
everyone had a rookie year.
everybody did.
Exactly.
I will say this. I hope that organizations really look at this and start appreciating the angler side a little bit better. If they would remove the dollar signs from their eyes and look at the human beings behind the products that they're asking to promote, like that's where, to me, if I was a business, well, I am a business owner, but I would look at it and be like, I want a face behind the name. I want somebody to represent the brand. Unfortunately, the pool has gotten so big and the anglers, they're thinning them out and with these different companies, but it's all about who you know now, right? Whether or not it's endemic or non-endemic, it's all about how you represent yourself. I will say, anglers that are out there with boat wraps and jerseys, you do make an impact. We have plenty of anecdotes where professional anglers have either behaved in a manner that wasn't so professional that people are like, I'm never buying a product that angler represents again.
Yeah.
Right? And that is a real thing. And I think that's important. But if it wasn't for us sitting at this table, like, we wouldn't have developed numerous networks that helped each other out. Right.
100%.
And so for those young anglers, Seth, that you talk to and that we're all talking to, man, social media is important, but how you conduct yourself is just as important. And it's almost like Seth said, you need to find somebody that's been there, done that, got that t-shirt. You almost need a CPA, man, before you even jump into this thing and say, hey, look, here's your finances. Here's where I would invest. Here's what I would have in my savings. I might start a different 401k because there ain't no retirement plan coming from the organizations, right? It's all, it ain't happening.
Some guys I've heard of being on like corporate payrolls throughout their careers. You know, they get their entry fees or their bonuses or whatever they may get, but they're on corporate payrolls.
Yeah.
So they get a 401k investment plan. And I don't know the amounts, and it may be a lot of money. It may not be a lot of money at all.
Yeah.
Some anglers are fortunate enough to have that. But the old adage, they say, like, when fishing's tough, slow down. And when you think you're fishing slow down even more.
Yeah.
Well, when you want to do this, make sure you got a lot of money. And when you think you got enough, you better go get a whole bunch more.
There you go.
You know what I mean?
And slow down and think about how to get more.
Yeah, because it's just a never ending
money pit.
I don't want to call it a money pit, man, because if you do it the right way, which a lot of us out here are trying to do it the right way, we just got to catch a break.
Yeah.
You do it the right way, it can be a lasting career. There are so many guys who've been doing it for 25 years. Mm-hmm. You just got to catch the right break. And if you do, you want to say something?
I was just going to say, it's like packing your shit up and moving to Nashville and hoping you strike a record deal.
I think your odds are even better than that.
Yeah.
I do.
Can you sing?
No, not worth a damn.
You might as well fish.
But here's my point.
That is true. That is.
If you meet enough people and you shake enough hands and you are true to who you are, you're going to get that break.
I agree.
And that's just me being on. That's just me. I'm not, and I may never get that break. I may not be in God's plan for that to happen, and I'm okay with that. But this industry, you can make a living in it. Yeah. It's not as easy as it used to be. But there are still plenty of guys that are making a living in it, and a good living. Yeah. You see their houses, you see their vehicles, they're on hunting trips a lot. Like, there's guys making some serious jack in this business. Yeah. That may not be a bunch of guys, but I didn't get in this business to make a bunch of money. I got in this business because I'm absolutely head over heels in love with bass fishing. Yeah. Any way, shape, or form. And I just love to fish, period. Right. Yeah. Me and Ben went out the other day. We didn't catch a bunch, but we talked and we learned a lot about each other and the business, and fishing his little lake we learned a lot about. And I look forward to going back. That's the thing about bass fishing, right? It just draws you to want to learn more and do more. But you really have to love it. Yeah. Because if you don't and you get in this sport to make money, go on and give yourself a couple of years. Yeah. Because you're going to flunk out like you would anything else and do something else.
Like I did in high school.
I just want to be able to pay my bills, feed my family.
And be happy.
Yep. And catch a bass. Yeah,
catch a bass. And you can do that, folks listening and watching. You can catch a bass anywhere. But if you want to make a living out of this, listen to all the words of wisdom that came out of this episode. Like, it truly is, like, important to talk about. Because, like Pete said at the beginning, expectation management, man. Like, go into it. There is no right. I want to, at least I'm going to end on this. When it comes to this kind of stuff, this is about as gray matter as it gets. There is no doctrine. There's no book that tells you how to do it. Ben's laughing because I just spoke Army, right? There's no real right and wrong answers. There's just, like, better and worse ones. And it really depends on the individual approach in this sport as their profession, right? And so I appreciate you breaking that down because that helps me out. Like, I want to jump in this stuff too, man. Am I good enough? I don't know.
You don't know until you do it.
I don't know. And that's a good thing to tell people too. Hey, you know what? If all else fails, jump in, see how hard you can swim, man. You know what I'm saying?
Froggy, take the leap.
That's right.
You don't know unless you try.
That's right.
Here's what it takes if you want to try.
Yep.
Now you can decide, is it really worth the sacrifice and the grind to go chase that dream?
And go back and listen to Derek Hudnall break it down, man, and say, hey, I knew when I needed to call it quits.
Yep.
Right? He's fished at the highest level there is in most people's opinion of professional bass fishing, and he walked away from the Elite Series. Right? So that's a hard pill to swallow, but you know what? He has a family just like you. He has bills just like you, and he was like, hey, I got to make a choice, man. Right. So I'll end on that. Pete, Ben, what you got for Seth?
I'm good.
No, Seth, once again, glad you came down here. Always great to hang out, talk a lot. Glad we got to fish a couple days ago.
Yeah.
You beat me and caught that 5-pounder. That's all good.
Oh, you guys had a in the boat tournament together?
No.
I didn't know it was a tournament at the time, or I'd have been in the front, not the back.
I didn't catch a single fish with him on Sunday. He backboated me the whole time.
Oh, I backboated him, but it's okay. But he still outfished me. That's okay.
See,
but I appreciate you coming in. Appreciate you being a friend of the show, and definitely I appreciate you being the newest member of the OneCast fishing team as well.
That I appreciate you guys, each and every one of you. You know, the opportunities that from meeting you guys has well exceeded any type of expectation I would ever had for a friendship. But now, obviously, business wise. So, thanks for having me on, and I hope to be back in the near future with positive vibes of a tournament win, and just to talk fishing. You guys, I enjoy. I mean, we talk. Most people don't realize we talk via the phone, text message a lot, just about fishing in general. So to be able to come back down here and hang out for a couple hours is fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Seth. You helped us a lot this year in the Fishers and Men. Your wisdom on these local bodies of water. We're not locals here. We appreciate that. You definitely are a steward of the profession, and you help us grow a culture of anglers, helping anglers one cast at a time.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.